too much to give in brief. I'll just give it really, really briefly. As you said, you've been getting all of the newsletters and everything like that. In any case, it's all up on our website. But the only point that I wanted to make sure to mention was when you said it's not just the people who lost their lives and their homes, that, yeah, we know that. And that's really been one of the gifts for those of us who have been able to do seva under Pujya Swamiji, is that his vision and his ability in that moment to see exactly what that moment of the problem is and exactly how to respond in that moment. And then to be able to change in the next moment, because in the next moment the situation is completely different. So as soon as it happened, the very first thing that we did was just opened the doors to the ashram. Okay, people are stranded. Okay, people can't go up. Okay, people are coming to search for loved ones. Fine. Doors of the ashram are open. Anybody who needs a place to stay, he canceled all of the yoga and meditation classes and said, this is yoga, this is meditation, use the halls, use everything. Then as soon after, probably 2 days later, as soon as people started being able to come down from the mountain, we set up relief camps here in Rishikesh, at the train station, at the bus station, where they got free medical care and medicines and doctors and food and water and, of course, places to stay, because what we realized was, even though the doors of the ashram were open, not everyone was going to be able to come across the river to come here, particularly if people, for example, were on a bus that got them down to the bus stand at night and they wanted to leave first thing in the morning to go back to their village. There was no reason to make them come all the way across. So we set up a 100-bed tented shelter right there at the bus stand. We coordinated with the government to get information about who was coming down on what bus. Otherwise, it was so tragic. These buses would come, the loved ones would rush onto every bus that came looking for their loved ones. Nobody had any idea what bus they might be coming down on. So we coordinated with all of them. We also sent buses up to bring people down. But of course, since they were going up, no point in sending them up empty. We sent them up with food and water and blankets and warm clothes and medicines and mobile phones so they could call their loved ones. Buses went up, deposited the relief materials, and we brought back almost 1,000 people we were able to rescue to bring back down. Big buses couldn't go at that time, so we had to source as many small buses as we possibly could to navigate those roads. But then, within another few days, I'd say, I don't remember exactly, but I'd say approximately about a week after the tragedy, once you were able to actually get up almost to where the devastation had happened, we were sending trucks up. We sent up more than 50 truckloads worth of materials, and our teams were up there for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, having medical camps. We had doctors, we had veterinarians distributing, again, blankets and warm clothes and food and water and tents. Because the reason that most of the construction hasn't started isn't just a matter of lethargy. It's a matter of the fact that you can't do pukka construction. You can't do real solid construction until it's dry. Cement won't set. So the tragedy under the tragedy of this was that typically we actually get our heaviest rains in September. For the last many, many years, the highest that Ganga comes, the heaviest rains are in September. This was early third week of June. And the tragedy of that, beyond the obvious tragedy, was that you had to sit and wait out another 2.5 months worth of monsoons before you actually could start any permanent reconstruction. There was no possibility of getting in there with bricks and mortar and cement and that kind of stuff in the rain. So we brought in waterproof tents, and as much as possibly could be done at that time. And now, of course, as Pujya Swamiji said, is the time when the permanent reconstruction is actually starting. So our teams are up there and working already in one village and waiting on finalizing paperwork for the other ones. It's, you know, an important point to mention about this is, and this really has been, I know I speak for all of us who have been blessed enough to serve under Pujya Swamiji, is that it's not a matter of service because you are a great humanitarian or a great philanthropist or anything like that. He serves the way that a mother serves. If your child is up all night sick, you don't expect a pat on the back in the morning or a gold star in the morning for having sat up all night with them. If your child throws up in the back seat of the car and you have to, mop it all up and it's gross and it smells, you don't do it so that somebody says, wow, God, what an amazing philanthropist you are for having done this. You do it because it's your child and because you don't have a choice. You couldn't sleep. It's not a matter of I have to tend to my child because that's what mothers are supposed to do. And if I don't, oh my God, what are people going to think about me? You couldn't sleep knowing that your child was sick in another room. It's not a question of doing it because it's the right thing to do. It's the only thing to do. Whether they're crying quietly to themselves or whether they're shrieking is irrelevant. If you know that your child is suffering in the next room, you're going to be there with them. Regardless of how many days it may have been since you've slept, regardless of how important of a meeting you have the next morning, regardless of anything. It's the only way. And that's really been, for me at least, and again, I know that I speak for so many of us, the blessing and the lesson and the message is, it's not you serve because it's the right thing to do, but you serve because it's the only thing to do. If you're open on any level and connected on any level to the world around you, it's the equivalent of having your child crying in the next room. There's no question of not responding to it. And that's the way that he serves. And that's why the service shifts with every moment. It's like, okay, your child's got a fever in this moment, and then the fever breaks, and now they've got diarrhea in the next moment. Well, you're not going to keep putting cold towels on them when they've shifted from a fever to diarrhea. You're going to respond to now what they're going through. Because of that, you're connected. And that's the way that the service here works.